Welcome to Kincaid Generation. We want your visit to be event-free and safe. During your work, you are required to abide by all federal, state, and local regulations at a minimum. This includes all OSHA regulations. Kincaid Generation safety rules must also be followed. These rules are contained within the 2 videos you must view, as well as in the Kincaid Generation Information Handbook for non-station personnel.
Housekeeping. Do not allow combustible materials such as oil-soaked and paint-covered rags, waste, packing, and other rubbish to accumulate on benches, floors, or yards. Store combustible materials in areas or receptacles designed and appropriately identified for them. Keep stairways, aisles, exits, walkways, storage areas, and work areas clean, sanitary, and free of debris and other obstructions. Store materials and supplies in an orderly manner to prevent their falling, rolling, or spreading, and to prevent tripping or stumbling hazards. Keep floors and platforms free of oil, grease, water, and other slippery materials. Remove or bend protruding nails. Dispose of scrap and waste materials at frequent and regular intervals or at the end of your shift. Keep all work areas and passageways clean and orderly. Asbestos awareness. Kincaid Generation was built in the late 1960s and does contain asbestos material. Due to the fact that asbestos is present at Kincaid, Kincaid has an asbestos management plan and trained people in place to manage the asbestos in the station. Any possible asbestos-containing material is assumed to be and treated as asbestos-containing material until testing proves it does not contain asbestos. So if you see or come in contact with any material that is suspicious, notify your contact person. Suspect material may include thermal and pipe insulation, floor tile, ceiling tile, fireproofing, packing, and gasket material. Right to know. Some operations at Kincaid Generation require the use of chemicals that may pose a hazard if handled improperly. Ask your Kincaid Generation contact what chemicals, if any, are used in your work area. A material safety data sheet can be provided to assist in risk assessment and personal protective equipment selection. Kincaid Station's chemist is in charge of our material safety data sheet file. Kincaid Generation needs to know what chemicals you plan to bring on site. If possible, a list of chemicals and material safety data sheets should be provided to the station chemist for approval before you bring them on site. The chemist will check for compatibility with our chemicals, as well as coordinate any pre-planning or potential response with our fire marshal. All labeling and storage regulations must be followed. This helps keep all of us safe. Personal protective equipment requirements. There is a variety of personal protective equipment required while working at Kincaid Generation. Hard hats and safety glasses must be worn at all times in the plant. Safety glasses must have side shields. No street glasses are allowed. Approved hearing protection must be worn in posted areas of the plant. As required by OSHA, natural fiber clothing is required if you may be exposed to flames or electric arcs. And always wear serviceable shoes or boots suited to your work. Canvas shoes, sandals, moccasins, or badly worn-out shoes are not permitted. Of course, your clothing should be in a condition that will not be hazardous to your personal safety. Shirts that cover the torso with a minimum of 4 inches of sleeve and full trousers that cover all of the lower body are required. Keep in mind, many pipes in the plant may be hot enough to burn you. Always use caution before you touch any metal surface. Any contract personnel required to wear a respirator shall be medically qualified and properly trained with regard to the types of respirators he will be expected to wear. In addition, those individuals required to wear tight-fitting respirators shall be clean-shaven and have successfully passed a fit test for each respirator he will use. Documentation shall be made available upon request. Coal handling safety. Be cautious if you are in the coal handling areas. The conveyors and other equipment can start up at any time. Also, never step on the covers over the coal silos, called zippers. Hot work permit. A cutting and welding permit must be requested from an authorized Kincaid Generation representative. The basic requirements of the permit are as follows. 1. The work area must be free of all combustible materials. 2. If all combustible materials cannot be removed, they should be protected in an appropriate manner, such as wetting down, placing protective blankets, etc. 3. If needed, fire-resistant blankets should be used to control sparks. 4. An appropriate fire extinguisher must be at the worksite. 5. A fire watch must be maintained from the start of cutting and welding activities until 1/2 hour after they've stopped. When all the requirements are met, the Kincaid Generation representative will hang the permit at the work site. Smoking policy. No smoking is permitted in the main building or other structures here at Kincaid. Smoking is allowed in designated smoking areas only. These areas are outside the plant on the ground floor and third floor. These areas must be kept clean at all times. Out-of-service procedure. The procedure used at this facility for de-energizing equipment includes a tagging system. If you see tags such as this, do not operate the equipment. The tags have been placed to protect equipment and, more importantly, to protect people. Do not operate any equipment with this kind of card attached to it. Also, never remove these cards from equipment. If you need equipment de-energized, please speak to your contact person who will make arrangements for the equipment to be safely tagged out through our Kincaid Generation procedure. Lead awareness. Lead has been used in many applications. Here it may range from solder in a cable joint to the paint that is protecting the equipment. It may become a health hazard if released into the air in the process of the work that's being done. For example, when cutting, welding, grinding, or chipping on paint containing lead. If you believe that you may be exposed to lead in the duties of your job, contact your supervisor or Kincaid Generation contact person. Fall protection. Kincaid Generation requires 100% fall protection. This means that individuals must always have a point of connection. Any violation of this rule will result in removal from the property. Fall protection is required whenever the fall potential is greater than 6 feet. A safety harness with shock-absorbing lanyard shall be used. Safety belts and non-shock absorbing lanyards are not permitted. Where lifelines are utilized, each worker must have his own individual lifeline. Fall protection anchor points shall be able to support at least 5,000 pounds for each employee using the anchorage. Contractor employees required to wear fall protection shall have received proper training prior to engaging in such work. Documentation of such training shall be made available upon request. Where roof or floor openings are created or where sections of handrails have been removed, workers within 6 feet of the opening shall utilize some type of fall protection. Upon leaving the area for any reason, the area shall be rendered safe by effectively barricading the area or replacing the missing components, creating the unsafe condition. Compressed air and gases. All compressed gas cylinders shall be stored with their caps in place and secured in a vertical position with chain or other non-combustible material. Oxygen and fuel gases shall not be stored together. They shall be separated by 20 feet or a half-hour fire-resistant barrier 5 feet high. All compressed gas cylinders shall be transported in a secured and upright position with caps on and approved carts to prevent damage. Protective hard hat devices shall be installed on oxygen and acetylene gauge assemblies. Do not hoist compressed gas cylinders by their valve caps. Compressed gas cylinders are not to be taken into confined spaces except for grade D breathing air used for work or emergency rescue purposes. Scaffold. The specifications that must be followed in the building and use of scaffolds are covered in OSHA 29 CFR 1910.28, Safety Requirements for Scaffolding, and 1910.29, Manually Propelled Mobile Ladder Stands and Scaffold Towers. All the information in the above quoted parts applies here at Kincaid Generation. Scaffolds shall be erected, moved, dismantled, or altered only under the supervision of a competent person. Such activities shall be performed only by experienced and trained employees selected for such work by the competent person. Here at Kincaid Generation, we require that all scaffolds be tagged. Before using any scaffolding, please review the tag on the scaffold. The tag will state any extra precautions that must be taken while using the scaffold. Confined space. Kincaid Generation confined space entry procedures must be followed any time a confined space entry is made. A copy of these procedures may be obtained from your Kincaid contact person. Contractor employees designated to perform confined space work shall receive proper training by their company prior to engaging in such work. Documentation of such training shall be made available upon request. Man lift safety. Man lifts are to be used by trained Kincaid Generation employees. Contractors may only use the man lifts if they have successfully completed the Kincaid Generation man lift training and have been issued a man lift badge to wear on their hard hat, which indicates they have been trained. Heat stress awareness. Many workers spend some part of their day working in a hot environment. Temperature, humidity, radiant heat such as from a boiler, and air velocity affect the level of heat stress a worker will be exposed to. Heat-related disorders include heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. If you believe you may be experiencing any of these heat disorders, call 311 for assistance. There are many ways to prevent heat stress disorders. Some examples include drinking extra fluids, taking breaks in cool areas, using power tools instead of manual labor, or wearing personal cooling devices. Your company needs to establish what protective measures will be taken if you are to work in a hot environment. Overhead electrical clearances. Keep all cranes, backhoes, aerial lifts, and other equipment the proper distance from power lines. The rule is 10 feet for all lines 50 kilovolts or below. For lines above 50 kilovolts, 10 feet plus 4/10 inches for each 1 kilovolt over 50 kilovolts. Using this formula, 500 kilovolts requires 25 feet of clearance. These requirements are in place to prevent arcing. Use a knowledgeable spotter when getting in close proximity to lines. Regeneration light. Due to the many potential hazards contained within a power generation station, be cautious of any leaks you may encounter during your stay here. These leaks include steam leaks that could burn you or chemical leaks that have various hazards. There are pipes that run from outside storage tanks to the basement containing acids or caustics. A leak from these pipes would burn you if it contacts your skin. Be especially cautious when in the basement when the regeneration light comes on. The regeneration light is a light that flashes to warn you when the acids or caustics are being pumped to the basement for use in the water treatment system. This light is used to warn you that acids and caustics are at a higher pressure, and leaks that occur at this point could be much larger. Accident reporting. All accidents must be reported to your Kincaid Generation contact person as soon as possible. Our basic incident form needs to be completed as well as a brief write-up of what occurred. If the contact person determines grounds exist, an investigation will be conducted. Also, all near misses and property damage must be reported to your contact person. Barricaded areas. Yellow caution tape is used for barricading areas of moderate to low risk. Hazards such as tripping hazards, intermittent overhead work, and/or welding and burning. Place tags on the barricade indicating the nature of the hazard, who placed the barricade, and the date the barricade was put in place. Remove the barricade when the hazard is removed. A worker approaching a yellow barricaded area may cross the barricade once he has read the tag, makes a visual observation, and is fully aware of the hazard. If no tag is present, do not cross the barricade. Red danger tape is for barricading areas of high-risk hazards, such as continuous overhead work, high potential for falling objects, exposure to dangerous materials, and/or high risk of falls. Place tags on the barricade indicating the nature of the hazard, who placed the barricade, and the date the barricade was put in place. Remove the barricade when the hazard is removed. A worker approaching a red barricaded area may cross it only after he has personally received permission from the person whose name appears on the tag. If no tag is present or a name does not appear on the tag, do not cross the barricade. Forklift. Any contractor employee shall have received the proper training prior to operating a forklift. No contractor employee shall operate a station-owned forklift without prior approval from an authorized company representative. Cranes. An annual inspection shall be submitted for each crane brought on site. The swing radius of the crane shall be barricaded. Outrigger pads will be used for all lifts. The load suspended by a crane shall not be moved over workers, buildings, or structures where people are located. The permissible distance from any part of the crane and its load from high voltage lines shall be determined prior to the start of the lift. All cranes are to be grounded. Electrical. All portable electrical hand tools, including temporary lighting and extension cords, shall be on a ground fault circuit interrupter program, GFCI. Temporary lighting shall be hung by the hanger on the protective bulb cage, not from the power supply cord. Light bulbs and bulb guards should be maintained in a safe condition. Pre-work briefing. Contractor supervision shall ensure that pre-work briefings are conducted for each shift prior to the start of work each day. Pre-work briefings will cover, at minimum, hazards associated with the job, work procedures, special precautions, tagging, personal protective equipment, and any special permits to be used.
Thank you for watching this video. We're sure your visit to our plant will be a safe one.